5 years. 5 long years of sacrificing everything. My time, my loyalty, my heart. For a woman who never deserved a second of it. I stood in the middle of our living room, staring at the table I had carefully set for our anniversary dinner. The candles sat untouched, waiting to be lit. The rich aroma of marinated meat filled the kitchen. A bottle of that expensive wine, the one she always claimed was her favorite, stood proudly at the center of the table. Tonight was supposed to be special, a reminder of everything we had built together. Yet, as the clock crept past 8, my phone buzzed. Stuck at work. I'll make it up to you, I promise. I read the message over and over, my thumb hovering above the screen. Work. On a Friday night? On our 5th anniversary? It didn't add up. A familiar, sickening sensation twisted in my gut. The same feeling I had been ignoring for months. I didn't want to believe it, but the whispers, the unexplained late nights, the lingering scent of a cologne that wasn't mine, they all pointed to one truth. I grabbed my keys. The drive to her office was a blur, my mind racing ahead of me, grasping at a hope I already knew was false. But when I pulled into the parking lot, reality hit harder than I ever could have imagined. It was empty. No cars. No lights. No Camille. That was when I knew she wasn't stuck at work. She was out with him. Some kid barely old enough to order a drink, probably sitting across from her in some overpriced French restaurant, soaking in her laughter, her coy glances, her lies. I could picture it too easily, her tilting her head back, sipping wine that I had bought, thinking she had gotten away with it. A slow burn ignited in my chest. But I didn't call her. I didn't yell, didn't demand explanations. Instead, I typed out 2 simple words. No worries. Then, I turned off my phone, walked upstairs, and started packing. Not just a suitcase, everything. My clothes, my books, my favorite coffee mug. Every piece of my life that had been tangled with hers, I ripped away without hesitation. By the time I loaded the last bag into my truck, I wasn't just leaving our house. I was leaving the life she thought she had trapped me in. The road stretched ahead, leading me somewhere she had never known existed. The mansion I had bought a year ago, my contingency plan, my escape. The place where I would finally reclaim my life. When I pulled into the long driveway, the weight of 5 years began slipping off my shoulders. She thought she had me wrapped around her delicate little finger. Thought I would forgive her like I always had. Not this time. The house loomed before me, all sleek lines and towering windows, standing high above the city like a silent witness to my rebirth. I stepped inside, letting the quiet wrap around me, a stark contrast to the chaos she was about to wake up to. At the bar, I poured myself a whiskey, the amber liquid catching the dim light. The first sip burned, but it steadied me. I wasn't the one who should be afraid tonight. She was. While she sat there laughing with her lover, basking in her betrayal, she had no idea what was coming. She didn't know I was done. 5 years. 5 years of sacrifices, of devotion, of believing in something that had never been real. And for what? So she could throw it away on a boy who probably couldn't even spell commitment? No. I wasn't going to let her win. She would regret this, not because I would scream or beg or fight. No, she would regret it because I was walking away without a second glance. Morning sunlight poured through the mansion's massive windows, streaking golden across the marble floors. I woke up alone, and for the first time in years, it didn't feel wrong. Muscles stiff from a night of unpacking, I stretched before reaching for my phone. It had been off since I sent that final text. Now, as I powered it on, the screen erupted with notifications. Missed calls, voicemails, messages, all from her. I didn't open them. Not yet. Instead, I sat there, watching the screen blink, knowing she had walked into an empty house last night and lost her mind. Good. Let her sit in it. I moved to the kitchen, the modern appliances gleaming under the morning light, and brewed a pot of coffee. The bitterness of the first sip mirrored my mood, dark and unapologetic. Eventually, I scrolled through her messages. A tangled mess of desperation. Where are you? Why aren't you replying? I got home and your stuff is gone. What's going on? I smirked. She sounded panicked, like a child caught with her hand in the cookie jar. She probably thought I had stormed off in anger, that I'd cool down and come crawling back. She had no idea I was already 10 steps ahead. Setting my phone aside, I strolled to the walk-in closet, where I had spent the night carefully arranging my life without her. My suits hung neatly, my watches lined up in perfect rows. Everything I needed to move forward. She didn't realize it yet, but she wasn't just losing me. She was losing everything. The mansion, the money, the lifestyle she had flaunted to her friends. It was all tied to me, and I was cutting the cord. By noon, my assistant called. "She's here," he said. Stormed into the office, shrieking about where you are. Security had to escort her out. I chuckled, picturing her in one of her tight little skirts, stomping around my company like she still had any power over me. Let her scream. I ended the call without a word and poured myself another coffee, unbothered by the chaos unfolding on the other end. I wasn't at the office because I didn't need to be. Everything had already been set in motion. Months of preparation, shifting assets, closing accounts, making sure that when I walked away clean. Camille had thought she could have it both ways, her little fling and her safety net. A husband who paid the bills while she played house with some punk who barely understood the weight of a commitment. She was so mistaken. The phone rang again. Another text. "Please just talk to me." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. She would figure it out soon enough, when the credit card stopped working, when the locks on the house changed. I took another slow sip of coffee, a smirk tugging at the corner of my lips. The storm was only beginning, and I was more than ready to watch her stand in the middle of it, completely exposed. The days passed with an effortless ease I hadn't felt in years. Mornings were spent sipping coffee on the balcony, watching the city wake up. Afternoons in my office, pushing my business forward, unburdened by the weight of a woman who had only ever drained me. I rarely thought about Camille. I didn't need to, but I knew she wasn't alone. Not yet. Jeremy, the boy she had thrown away our marriage for, was still hanging around. Tony, my investigator, kept me updated on every little detail. "He's playing the hero," Tony texted one morning. Picked her up from a friend's place. Took her to his apartment. I leaned back in my chair, smirking at the ceiling. Let him try. I'd seen Jeremy's type before. Young, cocky, convinced he had won some grand prize by stealing another man's wife. He probably thought Camille was a dream, a sophisticated older woman draped in wealth and luxury. Only Camille didn't have any of that anymore. No cash. No car. No sprawling mansion to flaunt. She was broke, and I wondered how long it would take him to figure that out. I tossed my phone onto the desk and strolled into the kitchen, plucking a crisp apple from the counter. The mansion felt more alive than ever, every room mine to fill however I pleased. No more of her gaudy throw pillows, no more perfume bottles cluttering the bathroom counter. It was just me now, and I liked it that way. I took a bite of the apple, the tartness biting at my tongue, and thought about Jeremy again. He must have thought he could swoop in, play the knight in shining armor, promising her a fresh start. But Camille's world, the one filled with designer bags, five-star dinners, and Parisian getaways, was gone. I made sure of that. The joint accounts were emptied. The credit cards were frozen. And the house she had crashed in after I left? The locks had been changed 2 days ago. She was no longer an asset. She was a liability. And I doubted Jeremy had figured that out yet. Tony's next update came that afternoon. They're arguing outside his apartment. She's yelling about money. I laughed, a full, deep chuckle as I pictured the scene. Camille, arms flailing, voice shrill, demanding he cover something. Lunch, a cab, anything. And Jeremy, standing there, looking dumbfounded, realizing for the first time that charm and a pretty face don't pay the bills. She had always relied on me. But I wasn't there anymore. I strolled back to my office, the hardwood floor cool beneath my feet, and pulled up my bank statements. Everything was intact. Years of building, saving, investing, all mine now. She had spent so long pretending my wealth was hers. Now she had nothing. I closed the laptop and leaned back, exhaling slowly. Jeremy wouldn't last much longer. Maybe he had promised her the world. Maybe he had even believed it himself. But promises mean nothing when you're 20 and broke. I gave it a week. Maybe 2. That night, I poured myself a whiskey, the amber liquid swirling under the dim light, and settled by the window. The city stretched out before me, glittering and alive. My phone buzzed. Tony again. He dumped her. Threw her out at a motel. Drove off fast. I grinned, taking a slow sip of my drink. 2 weeks. Faster than I expected. I could see it play out so clearly, Camille, voice desperate, clutching at his sleeve, assuring him it would get better. And Jeremy, eyes darting, finally seeing her for what she was, a sinking ship. He had wanted the fantasy. The legs, the confidence, the thrill of taking her from me. But without my money, she was just a woman with nothing left to offer. I placed the glass down, stretching, letting the tension in my shoulders fade away. This was the grand prize she had chosen. A cheap motel room, an empty bank account, and not a single person left to turn to. I stepped onto the balcony, letting the night air cool my skin. Below, the city pulsed with life, moving forward, unbothered by her downfall. She was alone now, probably curled up in some faded motel bed, wondering how it had all gone so wrong. I didn't feel sorry for her. Not even a little. She had made her choice. Now she had to live with it. I leaned against the railing, inhaling deeply, feeling lighter than I had in years. Jeremy was gone. Camille was on her own. And me? I was exactly where I was meant to be.